Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, everybody together. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna. Hare Rama, Hare Hare. Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare
Hare Krishna, thank you all for joining this morning, Srimad Bhagavatam class and attentive japa. We shall make a start. We're still talking about Devotee and Kapil Muni, her son, and he's explaining about her different between material and spiritual, the Sankhya Yoga philosophy. It's a very elaborate philosophy, and it does go on into more chapters, but we can see what we're going to cover. So today, Devotee, she's been asking about ending her material existence now that Kadamani had left, and the Lord, Kapil Muni, is explaining to her. So on hearing this statement of the Lord, Devotee inquired, what kind of devotional service is worth developing? Because last time he was explaining about the devotional service. So today we're talking about what kind of devotional service is worth developing and practicing to help me easily and immediately attain the service of your lotus feet. So Srila Prabhupada says that it is stated in Bhagavad-Gita that no one is barred from rendering service to the Lord. Whether one is a woman or a laborer or a merchant, if he engages himself in the devotional service of the Lord, he is promoted to the highest professional state and goes back home, back to Godhead. The devotional service most suitable for different types of devotees is determined and fixed by the mercy of the spiritual master, it says here. So spiritual master determines what service you should do according to your psychophysical nature, sees your qualities, and where you're best suited, where you're best comfortable, what service you're best comfortable to do. Spiritual master gives you those services. Now you might argue that well, spiritual master is not always available. He might be in a different country. Well, then the temple president, the temple seniors, the same thing. It's just extension of a spiritual master. Let's do a quick prayer. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Mukham Karoti Vachalam Pangum Lamyate Girim Yat Kirpatamaham Vande Shri Gurum Deen Taranam Brahmananda Madhvam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Hari Om Tassat Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narotamam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayam Udiriyat Nasta Prayesha Abadareshu Nityam Bhagavat Sevya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nestiki. Hari Krishna. So the mystic yoga system, as you explained, aims at the Supreme Personality of Godhead and is meant for completely ending material existence. So this devotional service is meant for Bhakti Yoga, meant for completely ending material existence. Please let me know the nature of that yoga system. How many ways are there by which can understand in truth that sublime yoga? So there are different kinds of mystic yoga systems aiming for different phases of the absolute truth. And as we know, the absolute truth comes in three phases. We've discussed so many times. The Gyan Yoga system aims at the impersonal Brahman effulgence, and the Hatha Yoga system aims at the localized personal aspect, which is the Paramatma, feature of the absolute truth. Whereas Bhakti Yoga or devotion service, which is executed in 9 different ways, headed by hearing and chanting, aims at complete realization of the Supreme Lord. There are different methods of self-realization, but here Devhuti especially refers to the Bhakti Yoga system, which has already been primarily explained by the Lord. The different parts of the Bhakti Yoga system are hearing, chanting, remembering, offering prayers, worshipping the Lord in the temple, accepting service to Him, carrying out His orders, making friends with Him, and ultimately surrendering everything of the service for the service of the Lord. So you have all these different aspects or different services to the Lord. So you might say, oh, so I can make friends with him, then that's okay, I don't need to do anything. But that is not a fact. As you move down, all of the services are automatically included in that part of the service. So hearing, chanting, worshipping, all that all gets included. So it doesn't mean you just make friends with the Lord and then you just talk to him nicely and maybe offer him something. Sometimes now includes everything of the previous services. So unless one accepts the process of devotional service, one cannot end the continuation of material existence. As far as Gyanis are concerned, they are interested in Gyan Yoga. But even if one elevates oneself after a great performance of austerity to the Brahman effulgence, there is a chance of falling down against the material, again into the material world. Therefore, Gyan Yoga doesn't actually end material existence. If it ends, it's only for a temporary period. We want to end it permanently. So Gyan Yoga does not end permanently. Similarly, regarding the Hatha Yoga system, which aims at the localized aspect of the Lord, Paramatma, it has been experienced that many yogis, and here's examples such as Vishwamitra, he did austerity meditation on the Lord, on the Paramatma for like 60,000 years and still fell down. But Bhakti yogis, once approaching the Supreme Personality of Godhead, never come back to this material world. That is the guarantee. Sometimes it is asked how the living entity falls down from the spiritual world to the material world. And here is the answer. Unless one is elevated to the Vaikuntha planets, directly in touch with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is prone to fall down, either from the impersonal Brahman's realization or from an ecstatic trance of meditation. The Bhakti Yoga system never urges one towards the impersonal Brahman effulgence or to the point of Paramatma realization. So mentioned here that souls who living entities fall down because they were in either the effulgence or they were just meditating on the they had just realization of the Paramatma. But you might think that, well, that's where they were now, but weren't they originally in the Vaikuntha planet? So when they in Krishna Golok, because that is our home, we were there. But then you can argue that our free will kicks in. Doesn't matter where we are, we have free will, and if we want to go to the material world, we want to experience the material world, then Krishna arranges. That's my understanding of that. My dear son Kapila, after all, I am a woman. It is very difficult for me to understand the absolute truth because my intelligence is not very great. But if you will kindly explain it to me, even though I am not very intelligent, I can understand it and thereby feel transcendental happiness. So Devotee mother is taking the humble position, although she's very, very intelligent. Knowledge of the absolute truth is not very easily understood by ordinary, less intelligent men. So not just women, by men as well. But if the spiritual master is kind enough to the disciple, however unintelligent the disciple may be, then by the divine grace of the spiritual master, everything is revealed. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur therefore says, Yasya Prasada, by the mercy of the spiritual master, the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhagavad Prasada is revealed. Devotee requested her great son to be merciful towards her because she was a less intelligent woman and also his mother. By the grace of Kapila Dev, it was quite possible for her to understand the absolute truth, even though the subject matter is very difficult for ordinary persons, especially women. Sri Maitreya said, after hearing the statement of his mother, Kapila could understand her purpose and he became compassionate towards her because of being born of her body. He described the Sankhya system of philosophy, which is a combination of devotional service and mystic realization as received by disciplic succession. Then Kapila Muni, he goes on to talk about liberation. Lord Kapila said, the senses are symbolic representations of the demigods, and their natural inclination is to work under the direction of the Vedic injunctions. As the senses are representatives of the demigods, so the mind is a representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The mind's natural duty is to serve. When the service spirit is engaged in, so when that service spirit of the mind is engaged in devotional service to the Personality of Godhead without any personal motive or gain, that is far better than even salvation. So if you're looking for liberation, it's better to do devotional service because that bhakti is higher than salvation or liberation. The senses and that liberation is a part of the package anyway that ultimately kicks in. The senses of a living entity are always engaged in some occupation, either in activities prescribed in the injunctions of the Vedas or in material activities. The natural inclination of the senses is to work for something, and the mind is the center of the senses. So the senses are always looking for something. That's their job, to look for some sense gratification. They are knowledge acquiring. Their nature is to acquire knowledge. The natural inclination of the senses is to work for something, and the mind is center of the senses. The mind is actually the leader of the senses. So leaders, wherever the leader goes, the followers follow, right? So if the leader is going to a material life, the followers will go there. If the leader is going to spiritual life, automatically the followers will also follow him. In this case, the senses. Therefore, it is called sattva. Similarly, the leader of the demigods who are engaged in the activities of this material world, sun god, moon god, Indra, and others, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So God is it's mentioned that he is the leader of all the gods, demigods. The senses led by the mind act under the influence of the demigods. When the service is ultimately aimed at the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the senses are in the natural position. So they are following, and that's the best position anyway. The Lord is called Rishikesha, for he is actually the proprietor and ultimate master of the senses. The senses and the mind are naturally inclined to work, but when they are materially contaminated, they work for some material benefit of the service of the demigods. Although actually they are meant to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we are serving the followers rather than the leader. The senses are called Rishika, and the Supreme Personality of God is called Rishikesha. Indirectly, all the senses are naturally inclined to serve the Supreme Lord. That is called Bhakti. Kapil Dev said that when the senses, without desire for material profit or the selfish motives, are engaged in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one is situated in devotional service. The spirit of service is far better than siddhi, salvation. Bhakti, the inclination to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is in transcendental position, far better than mukti or liberation. So it's mentioned here. And it also says that it's only bhakti when your mind and senses are applied. Because a lot of times we do many kinds of bhakti, all 9 forms of bhakti will do, but our mind and senses are somewhere else normally. Only our working senses are working, but otherwise our mind and senses that acquire knowledge, gratification seeking senses are always somewhere else. So attentiveness is very, very important. For example, we're chanting, our mind naturally goes somewhere else. So it's only bhakti if you are applying completely with your mind and senses. That spirit of service is far better than siddhi, salvation, bhakti. the inclination to serve the Supreme Personality Godhead is in a transcendental position far better than Mukti or liberation. Thus, Bhakti is the stage after liberation. Unless one is liberated, one cannot engage the senses in the service of the Lord. This is interesting. So when the senses are engaged either in material activities of sense gratification or in the activities of Vedic injunctions, there are some motive. But when the same senses are engaged in the service of the Lord, there is no motive. That is called animita, and it's the natural inclination of the mind. The conclusion is that when the mind, without being deviated either by Vedic injunctions or by material activities, is fully engaged in Krishna consciousness or devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is far better than the most aspired for liberation from material entanglement. So then Kapil Muni goes on to say, Bhakti, devotional service, dissolves the subtle body of the living entity without separate effort, just as fire in the stomach digests all that we eat. So Sri Prabhupada explains that Bhakti is in a far higher position than Mukti because a person's endeavor to get liberation from the material engagement is automatically served in devotional service. So we don't have to try separately for liberation. When you are doing Bhakti, you get liberation automatically. And the example is given here that the fire in the stomach can digest whatever we eat. If the digestive power is sufficient, then whatever we can eat will be digested by the fire in the stomach. Similarly, a devotee does not have to try separately to attain liberation. That very service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the process of his liberation, because to engage oneself in the service of the Lord is to liberate oneself from material entanglement. So more we get attached to Krishna, the more we get detached from material life. So that's automatic. Sri Bilva Mangal Thakur explained this position very nicely. He said, I have unflinching devotion onto the lotus feet of the Lord, then mukti or liberation. Liberation serves me as my maidservant. Mukti, the maidservant, is always ready to do whatever I ask. So when you're a sadhu, when you're a true devotee, then mukti is there to serve you. In fact, everything is there to serve you. For a devotee, liberation is no problem at all. Liberation takes place without separate endeavor. Bhakti is therefore far better than mukti or the impersonalist position. The impersonalist undergoes severe penance and austerities to attain mukti, but the bhakta simply engages himself in the bhakti process, especially chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Immediately develops control over the tongue by engaging it in the chanting and by accepting the remnants of foodstuffs offered to the Personality of Godhead. So these are two methods to get control on the tongue. As soon as the tongue is controlled, naturally all of the senses are controlled automatically. So the tongue seems to be the leader of all the senses, or the other senses. It naturally does two jobs as well. Sense control is the perfection of the yoga principle, and once liberation begins, immediately as soon as he engages himself in the service of the Lord, it is confirmed by Kapil Dev that bhakti, or in devotional services, very yasi, more glorious than siddhi, liberation. So bhakti is again given a lot of preference here, that don't aim for liberation, aim for bhakti. And then so there's misconception that you can become one with the Lord. So Kapil Dev explains, a pure devotee who's attached to the activities of devotional service and who always engages in the service of my lotus feet never desires to become one with me. Such a devotee who is unflinchingly engaged always glorifies my pastimes and activities. So mentions here that there are 5 kinds of liberation stated in the scriptures. One is become one with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or to forsake one's individuality and merge in the Supreme Spirit. This is called Ekatmatam. A devotee never accepts this kind of liberation. The other 4 liberations are to be promoted to the same planet as God, Vaikuntha, to associate personally with the Supreme Lord, to achieve the same opulences of the Lord, and to attain the same bodily features of the Supreme Lord. A pure devotee, as explained by Kapamuni, does not aspire for any of the 5 liberations. He especially despises as hellish the idea of becoming one with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If you become one with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, how are you going to serve him? You want to stay individual so you can serve him. It is clearly stated by Kapil Muni that bhakti activities or activities in devotion service are transcendental to mukti. That is, this is called Pancham Purushat. So we have the 4 Purushats, Dharma, Arth, Kam, Moksha, and then you have the 5th Purushat, which is bhakti. But the Vedas only mention the 4 Purushats. The Vedas is all about the 4 Purushats up to liberation. But there is something beyond liberation, and that is bhakti. So I could say more, but I'll just finish off here. And then Kapil Muni also says, "Oh, my mother, my devotees always see the smiling face of my form with eyes like the rising morning sun. They like to see my various transcendental forms, which are all benevolent, and they also talk favorably with me." So actually, in our present state, it is not possible to see God in his spiritual form because our material eyes and senses cannot conceive of a spiritual form. We cannot even see the spiritual form of the individual soul. So when a man dies, we cannot see how the spiritual form leaves the body. That's a defect of our material senses. Our material senses are limited, just like we are limited. Our senses are limited. In order to be seen by our material senses, the Supreme Personality of Godhead accepts a favorable form, which is called Archa Vigraha. This Archa Vigraha, sometimes called the Archa Incarnation, is not different from him. Just as the Supreme Personality of Godhead accepts various incarnations, he takes on forms made of matter, clay, wood, metal, and jewels. So there's a lot of preference given to the deity form. And I'll just say finally that the devotee expresses their mind before the deity, and in many instances, the deity also gives answers. This is very interesting. But one must be very elevated devotee in order to be able to speak with the Supreme Lord. Sometimes the Lord informs the devotee through dreams. These exchanges of feelings between the deity and the devotee are not understandable by atheists, but actually the devotee enjoys them. Kapil Muni is explaining how the devotees see the decorated body and face the deity and how they speak with him in devotion service. So that's more about devotion service and how it's superior to everything else, everything, 5 kinds of liberation, and going into trance for thousands of years, or becoming the most knowledgeable person, most knowledgeable Shastri. What you can attain by devotion service, it includes all those things. That's the highest position to be in. So thank you all so much for joining. I'm assuming this is Nitai Charan Prabhu. If it is, welcome back, Prabhu. There's Partha Prabhu, Praveen Mataji, Prem Prakash Prabhu, and Sarvashriya Mataji. Thank you for joining, and I'd like to hear your views. If that is Nitai Charan Prabhu, please reveal yourself. Love to hear from you, Prabhu, and Tanvus Pranam. And I hope I'm right. Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Okay, maybe you're busy. Okay, maybe later. Partha Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Hare
Krishna. Nice class, Prabhu. Like, yeah, I just need to hear this class one more time for such a nice class. This is all about bhakti, and nice devotional service. So I need to listen to the class one more time, Prabhuji. Such a nice class.
Thank you. Yeah, because Devotee asked, what is there's so many different aspects. So what is the best for me? How can I want to get out of this material existence? And then Kapil Muni explains that to really get out of this material existence, then devotion service is best. Other aspects like Gyan Yoga and meditation, it seems like you get out of this material, but it's only temporary. You have to go back again, and you can also easily fall down. And the example given to about Vishwamitra, that he was in a trance, controlling his senses for 60,000 years, and he still fell down. You know, that it's not powerful enough. Other aspects are not powerful enough as like devotion services. And Gyanis trying to get into Brahman effulgence. Well, they go there and then they get bored, and then they fall down again into the material world. So it's all temporary. For a permanent visa to spiritual planets, to Krishna Lok, you need devotion service. Yes. Radharani, would like to say something?
Yeah. Yes. Hare Krishna, everyone. I was hearing a class yesterday, and very interesting points I noted there, that even when, for example, a person has qualified to be taken to Golok Vrindavan, and when they are taken on the plane, on the way they will see the heaven, the Swarg, the Vaikunthan, Shivlok, Ramlok, and all those different places. And if by any chance that person who's been taken to the Golok Vrindavan, that soul, I mean to say, and when looking up at the Swarglok, they just feel very tempted at all the opulences there. Then you know what happens? That soul is dropped there at the heaven. So that soul, which was actually destined to go to the Golok Vrindavan, that soul somehow had some unfinished desires or was weak, wasn't that dedicated to the ultimate destination, that is the Golok, that will be dropped there just like that. So that will be very unfortunate. So we have to do with all our material desires. If there's any unfulfilled desires, I would definitely suggest, because this was my understanding, that let us finish those material desires and then shift all our energies and desires for bhakti only, and see that the final destination for our soul is Golok Vrindavan or Vaikunt, or wherever our Sukriti is going to take us after this life. And so it was an eye-opener that even if you have been sanctioned that yes, this soul has done this much, what was required for the highest destination, and on the way when it was being transported by the Vishnu Dutas, if that soul is going to be a little bit greedy, that soul will be dropped just like that. So we have to be very careful. Bhakti is not cheap. Bhakti is above the 4 Purusharthas, as we heard in the class today, and Bhakti has to be taken very, very seriously, and that should be the only aim and be all and end all of all of our lives. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Yeah, it's quite, sounds very complicated, because you would expect that somebody is completely purified before they get that option to go back. But I have also heard something that if a devotee is interested in Ram rather than Krishna, then they will go to Ram Lok rather than Krishna Lok. So, or they might think they're interested in Krishna, but when they go past Ayodhya, and they suddenly show a lot of attachment. So, I think the driver is not fussy. So if this is where you want to come off, that's fine. He'll let you off there.
I think they just push you.
So interesting, very interesting.
Afterward.
So I think what we got to do, if you want the ultimate destination, is to hold on to Krishna's feet very tightly. But having said that, it does not mean that if you went to Vaikuntha or Ram Lok or any other spiritual lok, that you wouldn't be happy there. You would still be happy there. Thank you so much. Praveen Mataji?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. A very nice realization and understanding from Mataji. So we have to firmly, like you said, hold Krishna's feet and go with the natural inclination of the mind to engage our senses in devotional service to the Supreme Lord. So I like the word you said, animita. And also you mentioned about the fifth Purusharth Bhakti, which I didn't know. So thank you so much, Prabhuji. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Prem Prakash Prabhu?
Hare Krishna, Devotee.
Hare Krishna.
Very good. I was thinking at that time that when it was said that Devotee Mata said that I'm not that intelligent, I was just thinking like, okay, it might be a spiritual matter to understand these spiritual things, and that's why she's telling. But when you said that she was taking humble position, so I was like, yeah, I actually understood it better.
Well, this is what I think because she was very intelligent, and to be the mother of God Himself, can't be an ordinary woman, right? And she's the daughter of Swambhava Manu as well, so she's no ordinary person. Sorry, carry on.
Yeah, so that's one thing. And then I was just thinking of a joke basically, which it says that a husband and wife wakes up and a wife says it's still night and husband says, okay, it's still night. Although he knows that it's morning and a day now, he goes to sleep or probably engages in some activity. So who is more intelligent in this case? To avoid it's always intelligent to say yes to wife, and in that way husbands are always cracked a joke that they're more intelligent in that way. Saying yes to wife is always more intelligent. Being more intelligent. Avoid a discussion, a bad discussion is always being more intelligent. So basically what I was thinking over here is devotees are intelligent in sense that they are kripa patra or mercy. They actually depends on the mercy. Rather, the yogis, it depends on their yogic strength, their austerity. So yogis and jnanis depends on the jnana and austerity. So that's what they actually depend on to get liberation. Whereas the devotees actually depend on the mercy. So their repeated attempts are to get more and more mercy, either from the Lord or from the devotees of the Lord. So that's where actually it comes. That's why Lord comes to protect them, because they are asking for mercy rather than they are asking for liberation. They're asking for mercy to serve, and because their mood is different, so even though they are not perfect or not as much austere or as not much knowledgeable as Jnani and yogis, the Lord comes to protect them, and that is a reason devotees actually get mercy, and they progress and they are eligible. They are made although whether or not they are eligible, Krishna and Guru Maharaj, and they actually gives them concession ticket to go to Golok Vrindavan. The point is, we by ourselves we are not eligible, but our Guru Maharaj are eligible. They are the mercy incarnation of Krishna. So they make us eligible to go back to Godhead. So that is what my perspective is. Sorry, Roji, if anything beyond understanding. Thank you.
Thank you, Ravi. Partha Prabhu is saying it's full of devotional rain, devotion is trained. So she will get here is this which okay, so poem by Partha Prabhu. Oh, amazing if you are traveling and joining. That's brilliant. Thank you. Oh, okay, for us. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, you're absolutely right. We rely on mercy totally as causeless mercy, because we're not capable of anything or at least we should not even consider that we are capable. We just have to desire and endeavor, and the rest is taken care of by God himself. If we say, oh Krishna, we did this for you, we are doing this for you, look what we've done for you, then Krishna, he can turn around and take out the notebook of what Srila Prabhupada did for him, or Dhruv Maharaj did for him, or what Prahlad Maharaj did for him, or what Rupa Goswami did for him. He says, just, is that, you sure you did a lot? Because look at this, did you do anything at this level? So even with a little endeavor, Krishna, he gives us mercy. So thank you so much, Prabhu. Okay, Sarvashri Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, everybody. The Sri Bhagavad-Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, they all the same subject. It's about bhakti. They don't talk about anything except bhakti, because without bhakti you can't reach to Krishna or Krishna Golok, and you have to do different kind of yogas. And yoga means to link or to join with Krishna. So some people they choose karma yoga, and that is that's without fruitive results. And then some want to reach by jnana yoga, that is impersonal Brahma effulgence. But in that one, they do not leave their material desires. And then some do Hatha yoga or Dhyan yoga, and that is localized personal aspect Paramatma feature of the Lord, but they can fall down. The example given in this is like Vishwamitra, he was doing this Hatha yoga, Dhyan yoga, but he was disturbed by the Apsara. So many times people were in the Bhagavatam, they were doing meditation, but they were always disturbed by people. But this bhakti yoga is transcendental. It's beyond all the yogas. And it is complete realization of the Supreme Lord. And by doing it, one never come back to this material world. In Bhagavad-Gita, Krishna says, Yoginam api sarvesham mat gatenantar atma shadhavan bhashte umam somya yuktatamo mata. In the four yogis, the one with great faith, who always abides me, thinks of me with himself, and renders transcendental loving service to me, is the most intimately united with me in yoga, and is the highest of all. That is my opinion. So Krishna's opinion is the highest opinion. So, and all these symptoms are of the symptoms of bhakti yoga. And then when we do bhakti yoga, and then the mercy of the spiritual master, the mercy of the Supreme Lord is revealed. All the senses and mind are in material activities. Everything we do, we like to do material. But when same mind and senses are engaged in Krishna's activities, is called bhakti. When engaged for material benefit, it can get contaminated and is the cause for the repeated birth and death. I mean, as I said, bhakti is better than mukti. Well, when you do bhakti, say bhakti already with folded hands, is stand before bhakti. And with mukti, you cannot get bhakti, but with bhakti, you can get mukti as well. So it says we always engage your mind and senses in bhakti yoga, and it just says in Bhagavad-Gita, all through to Arjun, do bhakti, and that tells us to do bhakti. Bhakti is activities. with engaging our senses, minds, and like non-pursuit bhakti, doing over the 5 more potent is just like association with devotees. Without association, you can't learn. You try to learn yourself, but you can learn, but it's not, you can't understand very well unless somebody explains to you. And by orally listening, you can understand. That's my experience. I can understand better when somebody tells me than read myself. So association is very, very important. Like we have this morning, we have so many opinions, and then it's reading the scriptures, which we done now. We read the scriptures, and then we talk deity worship and all those are the minor devotional service. So devotional service everywhere. I say without devotional service, nowhere you can create a Krishna lok or any lok. And so devotional service is accidental. It doesn't belong to this material world. It belongs to higher planetary system, spiritual world. So that's why it's a bit hard to do bhakti, because we are living in material world, and this devotional service is for the spiritual world. But we get help. We're getting help from these scriptures, to the spiritual master, to the senior devotees, like the Rankeshu Prabhu telling us all about Bhagavad. It's nice to, I mean, we read so many times, but if somebody tells you, as I say, you can understand better. So we just try to do bhakti. That's what we can. And just like you said, whole Krishna's feet, lotus feet, and that please give mercy. And without the spiritual master, we can't get mercy, Krishna. So we have to, I mean, we can't see our spiritual master, but we've got photo or anything, we can pray to spiritual master. So please give us mercy of Lord Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Mataji. Very nicely explained. Time is going by, so we'll do a couple of rounds. Swashi Mataji, please do the first round, and then Pri Mataji, I hope you're okay to do the second round. Hare Krishna.